Cold winds blew across the barren land outside the mining facility. The sky was dark and heavy, full of ash and smoke. Workers in dusty uniforms passed through the metal gates, some laughing, some coughing. None of them noticed the alien woman, standing silently to the side. She was thin, trembling, and barefoot. Her long robe was torn and dirty. Her skin was a soft violet color and her black eyes looked tired and empty. She held a small sign made of scrap metal. Scratched on it with shaky hands were the words, "Need, husband, children starving, help." Beside her stood two small children. One looked around 5 years old, the other maybe 3. Both were weak, their faces pale and noses runny. They wore no shoes. Their tiny hands clung to their mother's robe, hiding behind her whenever someone looked their way. But no one stopped. Some glanced at her. One man laughed and whispered to his friend, another alien beggar. What next? Marriage proposals at the gate? They walked on, leaving behind cold words and dust. Then came Mark. He was just another human worker. Hard hat on his head, lunchbox in his hand, face rough from years of work. But something about the woman caught his eye. Maybe it was the way she wrapped her arms tightly around her children. Maybe it was how she didn't beg, only stood silently. Mark slowed down. The alien woman raised her eyes and looked at him. She didn't speak. She just nodded once and pulled her children closer. Mark stopped. He looked around. No one else cared. He walked up to her slowly. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. She didn't answer at first. Her lips trembled, as if she'd forgotten how to speak. Then she said softly in broken human language, "My mate is dead. No food. No home. I wait here. Maybe humankind." Mark frowned. "You've been waiting here for a human to take you and your kids in?" She nodded. "Only human, maybe help. Others call us cursed." Mark looked down at the children. The younger one was leaning on the wall, eyes closed. The older one stared at Mark's lunchbox. "Have you eaten?" he asked. The woman didn't reply, but both children's eyes followed every move he made with the box. Mark opened it and took out his sandwich and apple. Without thinking, he handed them to the woman. She didn't eat. Instead, she knelt down and carefully broke the food into small pieces. She fed both children first. Only after they had eaten everything did she lick the leftover crumbs from her fingers. Mark felt something stir inside him. "What's your name?" he asked. "Rhea," she replied. "This is Leary. And Kovo." Mark noticed the bruises on Rhea's arms. Old, faded, but real. He looked at the torn soles of her feet. She'd clearly been walking long distances. "Why here?" he asked. "Why this factory?" She looked down. "Someone say, kind human works here. I hoped maybe." She didn't finish. Mark rubbed the back of his neck. He'd just finished a long shift. He wasn't rich. He wasn't anyone special. But he couldn't walk away. "You can't stay out here all night," he said. "I have no place," she whispered. Mark took off his coat and placed it over her shoulders. She flinched at first, but then gently held it with shaking hands. "Thank you. Human. Call me Mark," he said. He looked around. The guard at the gate didn't care. The streetlights flickered. The wind was getting colder. "Come with me. There's a workers' shelter 2 blocks away. I'll ask if they'll take you in." Rhea nodded and lifted her younger child in her arms. The older one held Mark's finger, walking slowly beside him. They reached the shelter. Mark knocked and spoke to the man at the door. But the reply was short and cold. "No aliens. Policy." Mark turned to Rhea. "I'm sorry. They won't let you in." Rhea simply nodded. "Used to it." He stood there, unsure of what to do. He looked at the children, now curled against their mother. They were falling asleep outside on stone steps. He handed her a blanket from his work bag. Thin, but better than nothing. "I'll come back tomorrow morning," he promised. Don't move. She looked at him with wide eyes. You come back? I will. As Mark walked away, her voice came so softly it almost got lost in the wind. Please, become their father before they die tonight. Mark froze. He turned around. The children were asleep. Rhea sat still, holding them tightly, staring into the darkness. And in that one moment, Mark realized this was not just about food or shelter or kindness. It was about life, and maybe something even deeper. Mark could not sleep that night. 3. Image of the alien woman, Rhea, sitting on cold stone steps hugging her sleeping children under a thin blanket, kept haunting his mind. Her soft voice echoed in his ears again and again. Please, become their father before they die tonight. He had heard many things in this galaxy, cries for help, desperate voices. But this one was different. It was not just a request, it was a quiet scream, a mother's final hope. The next morning, before the sun even rose, Mark was back at the factory gates. She was still there. Her eyes were half closed, lips pale. But she had not moved from her place. The children were still asleep in her arms. She had not eaten, not even begged. Mark knelt down beside her. You stayed? He whispered. I promised I would. She answered weakly. He handed her a hot drink and a protein bar from his bag. She didn't even say thank you. She simply opened the food and again gave it to the children first. Mark waited for her to eat something. When she finally took a sip from the drink, he asked gently, Rhea, tell me why. Why wait outside this factory? Why wait for a human? She looked at the sky, then at her children. I had no one, she said. My mate died during the Sky War. Bombs hit our village, only I survived, and I'm with these two. Mark listened carefully, not interrupting. When I asked my own kind for help, Rhea said, they gave me a cage, not a home. They called my children weak, unfit, said I was shame to my race. Mark's jaw tightened. I begged, she continued. I begged for work, food, even a place to clean. But they said, widow is broken. Her children are burden. Tears slowly ran down her cheeks, but her voice remained calm. Then I heard whispers. That humans are different. That a human man once adopted a lost alien child. That another married an old widow and gave her honor again. I did not know if it was true, but I walked. For days. Hoping. Praying. She turned to face Mark. I came here, to this place, because I heard a kind human works inside. Mark's breath caught in his chest. You waited for me? He asked, surprised. No, she said softly. I waited for someone like you. Mark didn't know what to say. His throat felt tight. I knew, she added. Humans are called violent in stories, but also kind, brave, warm. Mark sat beside her on the cold steps. You risked your life based on a rumor. Rhea gave a small, tired smile. I had no other choice. Just then, a factory truck drove by. The driver slowed down, stared at them, then spat on the ground and drove off. Mark didn't react, but Rhea lowered her head. I know I am nothing, she whispered. Not beautiful, not strong, just a tired mother. Mark stood up. He looked at the sky, the road, the factory. Then he looked at her, really looked at her. She was thin, her robe torn, her hair messy. But her hands were always on her children. Her eyes were full of pain, but also fierce love. You are not nothing, he said. She blinked, confused. You're a mother who crossed miles for her children. That makes you stronger than most. Rhea's lips trembled. You can't stay here, he said. I'll talk to someone. Maybe I can find an old worker's room. Not much, but warmer than this. You will do this for me? She asked. For them, Mark said, pointing at the sleeping kids. They didn't ask to suffer. Rhea held his hand suddenly. Her skin was cold, but her grip was strong. I don't have money, she said. I don't have land. I only have one thing to offer you. Mark looked at her, puzzled. I offer you my bond, my children, my loyalty, my heart, she said, voice shaking. If you choose us, I will never ask you for more. Mark gently pulled his hand away and placed it on the child's head instead. I haven't decided anything yet, he said honestly. But I'm not walking away. Rhea lowered her head in respect. I will wait, she whispered. Hook. That night, Mark got a call from his supervisor. Heard you've been helping an alien widow. Be careful, Mark. People are watching. You might lose your job for this. He stared at his phone, then out the window at the stars, and whispered, to himself, then let them watch. The small mining town of Drax 47 was built from metal, smoke, and secrets. Everyone knew everyone's business. Outsiders were watched, aliens were feared, and alien widows with children? They were seen as a curse. When Mark brought Rhea and her children into the old mechanic's shed behind the worker barracks, people started whispering. At first they just stared. A human man, helping an alien woman, feeding her children, giving her shelter, unthinkable. But Mark ignored them. He made a soft bed using spare blankets. He brought warm soup from the mess hall. He fixed the heater. He didn't say much, but his actions were louder than words. Rhea never asked for more than what was offered. She spent her days cleaning the tiny space and caring for her children. They were still sick, thin and quiet, but every day they looked a little better. And that's when the trouble began. It started small. Someone left a broken bottle outside the shed. Then came the nasty notes. One read, "Take your alien trash and leave." Another said, "You protect monsters. What does that make you?" Mark ripped them up and threw them in the fire. But one evening, when he was coming back from a late shift, he saw something that made his heart burn. A group of teens had surrounded Rhea outside the shed. They were throwing mud. One boy had a metal pipe. Rhea stood in front of her children, shielding them with her arms. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just took it. Mark ran toward them, shouting, "Get away from her!" The group scattered, like rats. One tripped and fell, another dropped the pipe, but none dared stay when Mark was angry. He knelt beside Rhea. She was shaking. Her robe was covered in dirt. One of her arms was bleeding. The children were hiding behind her again. Eyes, full of fear, Mark clenched his fist. "This town," he muttered. "It doesn't know what kindness is anymore." Rhea looked up at him, breathing hard. "They call us beasts," she said softly. "But I think beasts throw stones at mothers." Mark helped clean her wound, then sat with her under the stars. The children fell asleep between them. "You know," he said, "I was just trying to be decent, give you a roof, some food. But now, it feels like they hate me just for that." Rhea looked down. "You can still leave. Say I forced you. Say I lied." Mark chuckled bitterly. "No one forced me. I saw a mother trying to keep her babies alive. That's more noble than anything I've seen in this place." She stared at him for a moment, then whispered, "Why are you really doing this?" Mark didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled something from his pocket. A photo. Old, bent, faded. It showed a human woman and a little girl. "My sister," he said. "Single mom. Died during a power outage back on Earth. No one helped. She froze with her daughter in her arms." Rhea's eyes filled with tears. "I was too late to save them," Mark said. "But maybe I'm not too late this time." The next morning he carried both of Rhea's children to the clinic himself, paid for their medicine out of his own credits. When he returned to the shed, a woman from the town, old, wrinkled, and sharp-tongued, was waiting. She looked at Rhea, then at Mark holding the sleeping child, and said, "You just held that child like she's your own. Maybe no, she already is." Then she turned and walked away without another word. Mark sat down, heart racing. He looked at Rhea, who was gently brushing her son's hair. "I don't know what I'm doing," he admitted. "You're doing more than anyone else," she replied. Hook. That night, as the stars blinked above, someone scratched a message on the shed's door with a knife. It read, "One more step, and we burn you all." Mark stood in the doorway, staring at it. Behind him, Rhea held her children close, and, in that silence, Mark made a quiet decision. If the town wanted to make him choose, he would choose her, and he would protect them, even if he had to stand against the whole town alone. The next morning, Mark walked into the town office with a determined look on his face. The clerk looked up, annoyed. "What is it now, Mark?" "I need papers. I want to register dependents," he said. The clerk raised an eyebrow. "Aliens again?" Mark nodded. "A widow and her 2 children." The clerk leaned back in his chair, smirking. "You know what that means, right? It's not just food rations and medical access. Full protection laws require legal guardianship. That means full bond." Mark didn't blink. "Then give me what I need to sign." The man stared. "Are you sure, Mark? If you sign this, you can't undo it later. Not easily. You'll be tied to them by interspecies law, all 3 of them." "I'm sure," Mark said. The clerk sighed and handed him the forms. "Fill these out, but you'll need Rhea's mark too. And one more thing." Mark looked up. "She's not fully protected unless you make it official under Section 17A. "What's that?" he asked. The clerk smiled coldly. "Marriage." Mark returned to the shed. Rhea was brushing her daughter's hair while her son sat on her lap, playing with an empty food tin. The room smelled like warm broth, and for the first time in weeks, it felt like a home. Mark sat beside her and explained everything. Rhea went silent. Then she asked quietly, "So, I can only stay if I become your wife?" Mark shook his head. "No, I said I'd find a way. I can keep fighting." But Rhea raised her hand gently. "Don't misunderstand. I am not ashamed." He looked at her, confused. She set the brush down and placed her hand over his. "I was just surprised that anyone would want me. My people see widows as ghosts. Empty. Broken." "You're not broken," Mark said softly. Rhea looked into his eyes. "I have nothing to offer, Mark. No dowry, no power, no name. Only these 2 children, and a heart that is tired but true." Mark smiled. "That's more than I've ever been offered." They sat quietly for a moment. Then Rhea did something unexpected. She stood up, straightened her robe, and knelt on one knee. She placed both hands over her heart and said, "According to my people's tradition, I ask you to become the protector of my children and the partner of my soul. Will you bond with me? Not out of pity, but out of choice?" Mark was speechless. Then he slowly reached out and lifted her to her feet. "You don't have to kneel. For me, Rhea. I already made my choice the day I gave you that coat." Rhea smiled through tears. "Then I accept husband." They both signed the forms that evening. The moment they submitted them at the local station, a red light blinked. A scanner confirmed their identities. A loud beep echoed through the room. Then came the voice. "Bond confirmed. Family status activated. Interference with dependents is now punishable by law." The clerk, now nervous, gave them their new ID chips and quickly turned away. But as Mark and Rhea walked out of the station, a shadow stepped into their path. It was a group of enforcers, tall, armored, and cold. One of them stepped forward. "You bonded with her?" the lead enforcer asked. "Yes," Mark replied. "They're under my protection now." "You've made a bold move, human," the enforcer said. "But we were sent to take the children, orders from above." Her status was unclear. Mark held out his new bond card. "She's my wife now. They're mine. Check your system." The enforcer scanned the card. A few seconds passed. A soft ding confirmed the bond. The enforcer stared at the scanner, then at Mark. We will report this and return with new orders. You do that, Mark said. But next time, I won't be alone. Rhea stood beside him, clutching both children, silent but unafraid. The enforcers backed away, but their eyes lingered. That night, back in the shed, Rhea cooked with shaking hands, not because she was scared, but because something had changed. Mark noticed. You okay? He asked. She nodded. I never thought anyone would stand between me and danger, not since my mate died. Mark took her hand. You're not alone anymore. Rhea smiled gently. Then, may I start calling you husband now? You already did, he said with a chuckle. Hook. But as they shared a simple meal, far from the noise of the world, neither of them saw the silent message being sent from the enforcer's comm unit. Target secured. Human interference confirmed. Permission to proceed. Level red. Something worse was coming, and their new bond would be tested like never before. Rain poured down hard on the tin roof of the shed. Thunder echoed through the valley. Inside, Rhea was fixing a blanket over her children, who had finally stopped coughing and fallen asleep in peace. Mark stood near the door, staring out into the darkness. His thoughts were not calm. It had been only 2 days since the bond was made official. 2 days of stares. 2 days of silent hatred from the town. 2 days of people whispering behind his back. And now, the enforcers were watching. Rhea stepped beside him quietly. You feel it too, don't you? She asked. Mark nodded. They're planning something. They didn't leave because of the law. They left to get permission to break it. Rhea looked down at the children. We should run. No, Mark said firmly. If we run now, we'll always be running. This is our home now. She looked at him, eyes wide. Our home? Mark turned and faced her completely. Rhea, I didn't marry you to protect you. I married you because I saw a future. With you. With your kids. With our family. Her lip trembled. But they won't accept us. They don't have to, he said. But they will respect us. The next day, Mark stood in front of the town council. A crowd had gathered, some curious, some angry. A few quietly hopeful. He walked up to the podium with his sleeves rolled up and mud still on his boots. I want to speak, he said. One of the council members scoffed. About your alien family? Mark nodded. Yes, about my family. The hall fell quiet. Mark looked over the crowd, then spoke in a steady voice. You all know me. I've lived here 10 years. I worked in your mines, I built your walls, I've helped fix your engines in storms. I never asked for much. But now, I'm asking for this. He held up Rhea's ID. She is my wife. Her children are my children. I signed the bond with my own hand. I don't care if her blood is blue or her skin is violet. She's more human than some of you here. Gasps echoed through the crowd. I've seen her go hungry so her children could eat. I've seen her face rocks and threats without once raising her voice. And I've seen this town treat her like trash when all she wanted was a chance. A councilwoman raised a hand. And what do you expect from us, Mark? Nothing, he said. I don't need your blessing, I don't need your smiles, I just want you to understand I chose this family and I won't let anyone touch them. From the back, someone muttered, Then leave with them. Mark turned toward the voice. I could, but if I leave, then who's next? The healer with the alien wife? The teacher with adopted hybrids? Silence fell. We talk about building a better town, Mark said. Well, I'm starting here, with my family. If anyone wants to stop me, come now. No one moved. Mark stepped away from the podium, heart pounding. Rhea was waiting outside with the children. When she saw him, she rushed forward. What happened inside? She asked. He picked up her youngest son and smiled. I declared us a family. That night, someone left flowers at their door. No note. Just quiet acceptance. But it wasn't over. 2 streets away, the enforcers stood in the shadows. Their armor glowed dim under the streetlights. One of them whispered, "He's making noise. We're authorized to silence it." "Not yet," the other said. "Let's see how far he'll go." Back at the shed, Rhea was humming a soft lullaby to the children. Mark listened quietly. When the children were asleep, Rhea turned to him. "You spoke for us today," she said, "in front of everyone." "You're my wife," he said. "It was the least I could do." Rhea walked closer and gently rested her head on his chest. "I have no words for what this means," she whispered. "Only a heart that now beats with peace." Mark wrapped his arms around her. "We're not done yet. They'll try again. But we'll face it. Together." Hook. The next morning, when Mark opened the door, he found something terrifying. The shed had been marked. A red X burned into the wall, and just below it, a message carved deep into the metal. "You may call them family, but to us, they're still targets." Mark stepped back slowly, fists clenched. This was war now. The red X burned into the wall was still fresh. Mark stood in front of it for a long time, saying nothing. Rhea came out quietly, holding her daughter. Her eyes widened when she saw the mark. "They made their choice," she whispered. Mark didn't answer right away. Then he turned and said, "So did I." He picked up a bucket of water, scrubbed at the mark until his hands bled. But it didn't fade. The burn had sunk deep into the metal. Still, he kept scrubbing. The town noticed. Some stared in silence. Some smirked. But others began to feel something new. Shame. They saw Mark walk the children to the clinic, one in each hand, proud and calm. They saw Rhea sewing patched clothes by the doorway, her children giggling beside her. They saw that even after the threats, the little alien family had not broken, and slowly something began to shift. One morning, a young worker came to the shed and handed Mark a bag of fruit. "For the kids," he mumbled, then quickly walked away. Another time, a woman dropped off old children's books when no one was looking. Rhea smiled more. Her children started drawing pictures with chalk on the floor, pictures of stars, a home, and a tall human holding their hands. Then something unexpected happened. One of the town's children, a human girl, got hurt in the street. A crowd gathered. Her parents weren't nearby. Mark rushed over. Without thinking, Rhea followed. She knelt beside the bleeding girl and pressed soft cloths against the wound. "Stay still, little star," she whispered. Mark picked up the girl and ran her to the clinic. Later that evening, the girl's mother came to the shed. Everyone expected shouting. Instead, she hugged Rhea. "You saved my daughter?" the woman said in tears. Rhea looked confused. "But I am not even of your kind. You were the only one who moved," the mother replied. Word spread fast. The next morning, the local market gave Rhea a small stall space, just to help her earn something. And for the first time, she was treated as a woman, not a ghost. 1 of Mark's co-workers whispered at lunch, "She calls you husband now?" Mark nodded. "And those kids? They're mine." The man shook his head. "You're brave, Mark, or crazy." But later he handed Mark a tiny jacket. "My daughter's outgrown it. Maybe yours could use it." The change didn't go unnoticed. Other alien widows began to whisper, "Rhea's human. He doesn't hide them. He walks beside them. Her daughter wears real shoes now, did you see?" One night, 3 alien women came to Rhea's door and offered to help her clean and cook. "We want to learn," they said. "How to be like you. How to earn respect." Rhea smiled and welcomed them inside. The shed became brighter. More laughter. More life. And then, the greatest change of all. One morning, Rhea's little girl, Leary, walked up to Mark holding a hand-drawn picture. It showed Rhea, Mark, and the 2 children standing under a sun. In big, shaky letters, she had written, "My Papa is the strongest human." Mark's heart melted. He picked her up, kissed her forehead, and said, "You've made my whole life, little star." But the peace did not last long. One night, Mark found a letter under the door. No name, no threats, just a warning. They're planning something. Leave now or lose everything. Mark showed it to Rhea. She grew pale. "They've been watching, waiting for a moment we're alone," she said. Mark stood up. "Then let's not be alone anymore." The next morning, Mark stood in the square with his family beside him. He raised his voice. "I know many still hate what I've done, but look around. My wife helped save your child. My daughter calls this place home. My son laughs again. I'm not hiding. I'm proud." He looked toward the buildings, toward the shadows where the enforcers hid. "If anyone wants to take them from me, come try." A quiet cheer rose from the crowd. Small at first, then louder. The crowd didn't part this time. They stood beside him, one by one. More humans stepped forward, then a few aliens. Then a child ran up and hugged Leary. And for the first time in weeks, Rhea wept, not from fear but from hope. Hook. But in the shadows beyond the square, an enforcer lifted his comm and said darkly, "The town has turned. Initiate Plan Delta. Remove the family, quietly." Night fell quietly over the mining town, but something felt wrong. Too still. Too quiet. Mark sat by the small table in the shed. Rhea was preparing tea, and the children were coloring on the floor. Leary had drawn another picture. This one showed the four of them inside a house with a big red heart. Mark smiled. "You've gotten better at drawing, little star," Leary beamed. "I draw us happy." But outside, danger had already arrived. In the dark corners of the street, black-armored enforcers moved silently. No more warnings, no more questions. This time, they came to take. The first enforcer broke the lock with a silent tool. Another used a jammer to block all communication. But just as they opened the shed door, a metal pipe swung hard into the leader's helmet. Clang. Mark stood there, breathing hard, fists ready. He had been waiting. "You didn't think I'd sleep easy tonight, did you?" he growled. The enforcers lunged, but so did Mark. He fought like a man with nothing to lose and everything to protect. He blocked one strike, punched another square in the chest, then kicked the third out the door. Rhea screamed, grabbing the children and hiding them behind the table. But Mark didn't fall back. He roared, "You'll take them only over my dead body." The leader raised a stun baton and struck Mark hard in the ribs. Mark fell, but not unconscious. He crawled in front of the children and spread his arms. "You won't touch them," he wheezed, blood on his lips. "They're mine." Just then, the town's alarm bell rang. Clang, clang, clang. Someone had seen the attack. Lights turned on. People came running. Old men with tools. Young women with kitchen knives. Miners with metal bars. They surrounded the shed, eyes blazing. "You touch that family," one shouted, "and you answer to all of us." "We were wrong about him," another said. "He's more of a man than any of us." The enforcers looked around. Too many, too loud. Their commander hissed, "We leave, for now." And like shadows, they vanished into the night. Mark collapsed to the ground, gasping. Rhea rushed to him. "Mark, please stay with me." "I'm fine," he muttered. "I just need a moment." Leary and Kovo crawled into his arms. "Papa, you got hurt." Mark pulled them close and whispered, "I'll always stand between you and harm." The next morning, the town was different. The mayor himself came to visit. "We've decided," he told Mark. "No more standing by. We're declaring your family as protected residents. You've earned it." Mark shook his hand, still sore, but smiling. Rhea stood beside him, proud. Others came too, offering new clothes, real food. Jobs for Rhea, even a bigger house near the river. "You don't have to live in the shed anymore," they told her. But Rhea only looked at Mark and said, "Where he sleeps, that is home." Weeks passed. Peace returned. Leary went to school. Kovo learned to run and laugh again. Rhea taught other alien widows how to live with dignity. And Mark? Mark became a symbol. People no longer whispered behind his back. They nodded with respect. That's the man who didn't run, they said. The man who made a broken family whole. One evening, the town celebrated the harvest festival. Music, laughter, lights. Rhea wore a bright dress gifted by the alien, women. Mark wore his old work shirt, cleaned and mended. As they danced under the stars, Rhea leaned in and whispered, "You did something impossible." "What?" Mark asked. "You gave a widow love. You gave orphans a father. And you made an entire town remember what kindness looks like." Mark smiled. "I didn't do it alone." "No," she agreed. "But you were the first." Final hook. As fireworks lit the night sky, little Leary ran past them shouting joyfully, "Look, Papa, we're not ghosts anymore." And in that moment, Mark knew he hadn't just saved them. They had saved him too.